Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, dependent, of course, on when and where you are joining us from. This is the EPN podcast, a podcast that's been designed to demystify the sales profession and remove some of the stigma that is associated with sales. Now, we're looking to do that by talking to various salespeople to talk through their journeys in sales, share some of the challenges that they faced and how they overcame them, along with any other tips, tricks, and insight. Now, today I am joined by Abby Crowley, and I've just confused myself. Did I pronounce your surname right there?
No, you got it right. It's fine.
Okay, good stuff. Now, Abby's a Senior Associate of Sales Programs for the public sector at Salesforce. I'm really looking forward to this session today, Abby, so thank you very much for joining me. Did you want to introduce yourself and just tell the audience a little bit more about you?
Of course. Thank you, Jordan. It's a pleasure to speak to you. Thank you for having me. So my name's Abby Crowley, formerly Taylor. I just got married in the last year, so I'm still getting used to the surname myself. As Jordan said, currently work for Salesforce. For those of you that don't know, we're an American-founded global software company, best known for our CRM solutions. I work within the public sector industry, supporting a team across EMEA as their sales programs manager. So what that means is that our role basically centers around the four following pillars. So operational excellence, pipeline and revenue generating programs, success and productivity for our salespeople, and communications to our salespeople as well. Prior to this, I started my career in the tech sales world at Oracle. Obviously, love the big American corporates, apparently. Doing a very similar role, which in Oracle, it's called sales development. Very, very similar to what I do now. Focused on the UK, but for both commercial and public sector. Started there as an intern straight out of university and worked my way up to being a fully fledged member of the team. Where I really cut my teeth in the industry. Outside of work, I'm a singer in a band and an acoustic duo. I love surfing, spending time with my husband, our friends and family, particularly if there's good food and wine involved. Yeah, that's me.
Love that. Any particular genre that you specialised in with your band?
Anything really. The band I'm in at the moment is quite like punky sort of style, but I like singing anything really. It's my outlet.
Love to hear it. Brilliant. So my old man, he spent some time at the Big Red, so very familiar with Oracle. That's awesome. What was it that sort of piqued your interest in a career in sales, and then what was it that kept you in when you inevitably had those really tough days?
Sure. So it's interesting, actually. So your dad is in, well, I'm guessing like a similar sort of role. So it's safe to say that's not the case in my family at all. So my mum, my dad, my brother, they're all nurses. Safe to say the genes sort of skipped me. I'm scared of blood. So definitely not for me.
Yeah.
Super, super proud of them. But yeah, I don't think I'd have fared well in that industry. Growing up, I always wanted to be in performing arts, in front of a camera on a stage. But looking into doing drama schools and stuff, when it came to university time, sort of found that environment didn't really feel that right for me. So took a year out. I actually was working in sales, but in Lush, in bath bombs. So not quite the same, but along those lines. Travelled and decided to sort of channel the creative element of performing arts into doing a degree in English, as I thought it was quite a good baseline. I've listened to a few of your podcasts, Jordan, and it seems like there's a couple of people that sort of let's just do English and we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
But yeah, sort of was interested in after that going in towards events management, marketing, sort of anything people focused and creative, really. I applied for a few different roles, and a family friend at Oracle was like, we've actually got an internship scheme. This is the only one I've heard of, but here's the link to apply, essentially. It was for a real sort of back end, analytical role, which I was a bit I don't know if that's really for me, but it's a foot on the ladder, we'll give it a go. And they actually, during the interview process, sort of picked up on kind of the skills that I was probably more suited to, and dropped me into another role within the organization, which was the sales development role at Oracle. Started there and worked my way up within the same team. I'm still really close friends with the line manager I had at the time. She really, really shaped me as a person, and kind of showed me what other roles are out there really in the sales world. It was a great place to cut my teeth. Oracle was a great way to start in this career. I was there for about 4.5 years, and then got referred by an ex-colleague into Salesforce. And I've been here now for 2 years and just love it. Like, love the people, love the culture. The experiences you get to have as well in this industry are just like amazing, like stuff I'd never thought I'd ever get to do. Like, we did an event at the Ritz once. It was like amazing. That was horrible before. So yeah, really, really interesting, really enjoyable. Obviously not without its challenges, as with any role in any industry really. But yeah, absolutely love it. It's really, really exciting, and a role that I never thought existed as well.
Yeah. It's funny, actually, how many salespeople I speak to that are from a creative background. So I myself, I trained as an actor initially, tried doing that for a little while, had some fun, and then decided that sales would be the next move. I guess I
great industry.
I would set up affinity for roles that involve a lot of rejection. Make that what you will. Yeah. So you touched on some of those challenges that we are presented with throughout. What were some of the challenges that you were faced with, particularly during those early days, and how did you overcome them?
Sure. So I think one of the biggest things that I probably still find challenging to this day, and have got a lot better at, I'm sure my stakeholders will agree with, is saying no. So that was one of the first things that I said about my line manager earlier, who was really influential in kind of my early career. She said from the start, particularly with that sort of intern title, like, make sure you learn how to say no. Don't just accept that, okay, I've got to do this because somebody's asked me to do it. Like, be able to say no and know when and how to do that. Like, am I saying no because I can't be bothered, or am I saying no because I really don't have the time or the bandwidth to do it and it's not actually my job? And then also how to say that. Like, if you're just going around saying no, don't have the time to people, you don't want, you might not be coming up with the best reputation. But being able to say, actually, like, I don't really have the time on my plate. I don't really have the time to have this on my plate at the moment. Maybe if you ask me, and I might have some time in a week's time or a couple of weeks' time. By then they might have forgotten, which was also quite nice as well. But yeah, just being able to say no, I think, is a huge thing that I learned. I'm like a self-confessed people pleaser as well. So that was a big challenge, but definitely getting better at that for sure.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing would be dealing with other people's emotions. And I think, you're saying from like an acting perspective, this would definitely be the case there too. But, in the sales industry, you're dealing with big deals. There's a lot of money on the table. People are protective of their accounts. People put a lot of time into different things. People can, you might catch them at a bad time when they're dealing with, a difficulty in a deal or something. And I think you've got to learn to be understanding, but also like learn to stand up for yourself as well. If people, you've caught somebody on a bad day, but they've actually not been very pleasant, rather than what I used to do, just start crying, is like, just like, say to people, okay, maybe I'll speak to you tomorrow. This isn't really going, like, this isn't very productive. Let's catch up on this at another time. Or, even if somebody has had a bit of a pop at you or whatever situation you might be in, or you found it a bit uncomfortable, just pick up the phone to like your mum, your dad, your partner, your friend, and just have a bit of a like, oh God, this happened. And like I said, my family are all nurses and my husband's an electrician. They're all in totally different industries. So it can give me like a real good perspective of either, oh, maybe they didn't mean it like that, or like, you've got to think about what's going on in their life, or like, actually, my husband's very black and white. So he's like, no, that's not okay, sort of thing. But yeah, or somebody else that works in the same industry as you, or in the same company, that can give you a bit of perspective as well of, actually, so-and-so's got a big deal on their plate. And, although it's not right, like, they're a good person, they'll come around. And I'm lucky to say this doesn't happen a lot.
Yeah.
Like, sort of when you come out of like school and you get into like grown-up life, I guess, you sort of think, oh, nobody's going to be like that. But, we're all big kids, like, we can all throw tantrums and be a bit stroppy at times. So I think, dealing with other people's emotions and learning when and how to say no were some challenges I faced. And I think I'm coming around to combating those.
Yeah, certainly. It's a really good point. I think we should all feel confident enough to set those boundaries, right?
Absolutely.
One, and then two, as you said, that support network, but of very different perspectives, is so beneficial. And then the final thing I'd add that again I struggled with at the beginning was always make sure to flag it and go back to the person and just say, look, that instance I felt this way.
100%.
Without the emotion, but just raising to then talk about it. It's really beneficial.
Absolutely. And I've done that previously, and the person in question was mortified because they'd obviously be having a bad day and it caught them totally off guard.
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10 people will be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, if they haven't already come to you before. But I don't think that's not specific to sales. That's anywhere, I think.
Yeah, indeed. Brilliant. So of course in sales, the difference typically to a lot of other professions is because we're on the front line, we often feel very drastically any shifts that take place in the industry, any changes in buyer behaviors. And it can be tricky to, one, stay positive, but also stay adaptable so that you can make those shifts and remain successful. Have you got any tips or tricks through that sort of a lens?
For sure. And I think, I know a couple of people have spoken about this on the podcast before around COVID being a huge example of that, and having to, like, for example, in my old role at Oracle, we did a lot of events in person. Like, I mentioned the one at the Ritz, we did some great events with thought leaders, and that was a real great source of customer communication with us. But when we're not able to do that, you've got to think about how you pivot quickly and can change. What I'd say in terms of being successful in these sorts of periods is that communication is key, both within your internal teams and amongst your customers and prospects as well. So if you've got a good relationship with your customer, they'll hopefully keep you abreast of anything that might be changing within their organization. And then again, in your team, if I'm working to create an execution guide with a sales team member and they know of something that's actually changing within local government or central government, or there's something happening within the industry that they can let you know of, that means I can then amend what I'm doing and quickly pivot. And again, on that, obviously working as that tight-knit team, somebody's going to have an idea of what's going on, or is going to at least be that person to say, yeah, right, I've got an idea, let's change it. And I think working as that tight-knit team, you can all support and be supported by the people around you.
Yeah.
I'm really lucky in my team that my key stakeholders and I really work as a really close-knit team. Like, I work with our solution engineering team really closely to make sure we've got, we're touching on every base that we can to make our salespeople as successful as possible. We really work off of each other's strengths to be as flexible and adaptable as possible. And I think that's the main thing as well. Like, don't force yourself to do something that you're really not confident on. There's always going to be somebody within your network that can help you out with that as well. And I guess just, being open-minded as well with that and ready to pivot as much as possible. There's a lot of things we can't help, right? Particularly if it's in the industry. And I think just being open-minded to that and ready to be adaptable and changeable at all times is what I would say.
Yeah, definitely. It brought to mind, I can't remember the exact saying, but it was around the importance of, or how much better it is to over-communicate.
100%.
Right. And I know that at the beginning of my career, I was like, I don't want to overstep or, annoy people and pester, but it's so much better to over communicate in those feedback loops, just because, it may bring a fresh perspective to someone. It may raise awareness about an issue that, previously was being overlooked. So it is so crucial. And then that enables you to prepare as much as possible so that when those changes do happen, it's not as much of a shock.
Absolutely.
Nice. Now, as a female in a traditionally male-dominated field, that may bring some unique challenges. What do you think we can do as individuals and as an industry to be more inclusive and encourage more young women to get involved with sales?
For sure. And actually, I work my team is, I think we've got one guy in our sales programs team from EMEA. He's absolutely amazing. But so we're very lucky to be a female-dominated specific team. But I think absolutely, like, that's a very good observation that it is traditionally male-dominated. And I think for many, sort of those biases that come into play within that, it is not, it's not meant. It's a very, like, non-conscious thing. I think for a lot of people, it's ingrained in their learnings and behaviours that women, particularly young women, maybe aren't as capable as their more established counterparts, and people can assume this without realising and maybe make comments or act in a certain way. Yay, patriarchy. But I think that the advice I would give is to not be afraid to call people out on their behaviour. And I think if you do it in the right way, it can actually be really effective, and people can actually be really grateful that you've done it. And there's a really good example of this a couple of months ago, and I checked with the person that I can tell this anecdote because I didn't want to upset anybody. I was on a call with a couple of quite senior people and a couple of salespeople, and the sales guy made a comment around, this person was helping us out, or this girl was helping us out. She is, in her 20s, and was sort of having a bit of a moan about her. But I was sat there on the call like, what does her being in her 20s have anything to do with it? Like, I'm a woman in my 20s. So I put a comment in the chat just to say, like, what's wrong with being a woman in your 20s? And the call, actually, everybody started laughing, and we all had like a bit of a chat about it. And after the call, like my intent was not to embarrass anybody, but I thought, I can't imagine he meant that with any ill intent. And we've spoken a lot about that afterwards. And he actually approached me to say, I'm really glad you've challenged me. It's really made me think about a lot of the stuff I say, like unconsciously. And I think it is that unconscious bias thing that, we shouldn't have to, but calling people out on it in the right way, I think is definitely something that we can all learn from. It's difficult to do. I think as a woman calling that out, I think people get worried that others will think, oh God, here she goes on a feminist rant. Oh God, it's not all men. Like, that's, if I could have a pound for the amount of times I've heard that, but it's not all men, but it's enough that it will make a difference if we do start challenging this sort of behavior. So yeah, that's what I would say. And also to be aware of that it's not always just male colleagues that will maybe kind of have this unconscious bias as well. Like if you are, like another female colleague is using discriminatory language or comments, like I've experienced that as well. Like, and this also almost feels a bit worse that you're sort of being come at from like somebody on your own team, I guess, should be corrected and considered as well. So I think, if you need to mull on it for a bit, but I think calling people out in a productive way is a great way to do those things. And I think you can also speak to your manager off the record. Like you don't have to put a formal complaint in if you've experienced anything untoward. But like I said, I'm very lucky. The management team I work in is fantastic, and I feel very confident that I could go to them. But it's worth sort of checking that out and finding out how well you'd be supported. But in terms of the industry and how I think they can work in favor of this, I think address your indiscrepancies rather than try and hide behind like look how much we're doing for women in leadership. Like that's great, but I'd rather sort of hear about like we are actually facing these problems because this is what it was like before. We don't want that. And then hopefully we'll get to a stage where it's not women in leadership or women in sales. It's just leadership or sales. Yeah. Without the caveat of making it, women in front of it as a precursor. Yeah. I don't know if I sort of rambled at the end there. I don't know if that makes sense. That's perfect. I saw this really powerful post a little while back. I forget who actually posted it. I'll find it, but it was around International Women's Day, and it was essentially for all these companies that are posting about Happy International Women's Day. For show, how about you share how many women you have in senior leadership, how many women you have here. And it just really sort of opened my eyes to it that, people can hide behind these things, companies particularly, it can put on a good show, but behind closed doors, you just don't know. So that culture, that environment, where individuals feel supported regardless of their walk of life, gender, race, it is really crucial. For sure. And I think it should get to a point where having a woman or non-binary person or whatever it might be on a leadership team shouldn't be like, oh, wow, isn't that great? It should just be that's normal. That's what it should be. But I think we are getting there, hopefully, slowly but surely. I'm very lucky where I feel very supported in the environment I work in, but I know that's not the same for everybody.
Yeah, indeed. Indeed. Conscious of time, really keen to touch on some of the best pieces of advice you've been given throughout your career. Are there any standouts?
Sure. And I know I talk loads, so I'm really sorry. I've probably made this movie. I'd definitely say, and again, going back to my first line manager taught me this as well, but it's not what you know, it's who you know. If you're struggling with getting a piece of information or to create something, use your network. Like I always say, your network is your net worth. And I'd absolutely say that as many people as you can meet, the better, when you're first starting out. And then also just touching back on that, know when to say no, protect your time and energy, question whether it falls within your remit and whether you have the bandwidth to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, it is such a good point. The power of mentorship as well. You'd be really shocked by how helpful salespeople actually are. I know majority of salespeople have, helping someone in their job title, but honestly, it is quite overwhelming how willing sales leaders are if you do turn to them with a question. They'll be willing to go that extra mile and share insight, mentorship, essentially, which is fantastic.
Definitely.
Nice. Final question. What advice would you give to yourself when you were younger, or anyone listening that has either just embarked on their sales journey or potentially might be considering a career in sales?
I'd say probably the first one, and it sounds a bit negative, but I mean, it was like, and again, this goes for all walks of life, but no one can make you feel inferior without your permission. I think that is a quote from the Princess Diaries. So it's probably come from someone else before that. But, you could be fresh out of school, out of university, but that doesn't mean that anybody is better than you or deserves to treat you that way or treat you as you're anything less than them. I'm very lucky. I've not had a lot of that experience, but I think it's easy to sort of put that on yourself when you're quite new in an industry. And I must say yes to this because they're so much more senior than I am. It kind of ties into that saying no piece again, but believe in yourself and your abilities. I think kindness and compassion goes such a long way. Like being a pleasant and polite person, I think it has got me to meet more people and has got me quite a long way in this industry because people like working with you if you're pleasant and polite and compassionate. And have fun as well. Like there's, like we were just saying, there's loads of amazing people in sales, like mentors, friends. Like some of my best friends are I've met from working in sales. There's great experiences you can have. So enjoy it. It's a great ride. And if you're having a bad day and feeling a bit down after work, put some reruns on The Apprentice because they always make me feel better. If I've had a bad day and they're running around like fools. Yeah. So that's the final piece of advice, I think.
I absolutely love that, and I'm going to do that next time I'm having a bad day.
For this week, I think. I can't wait.
Oh, brilliant. Abby, it has been an absolute pleasure. I've thoroughly enjoyed that. If anyone listening does want to reach out, where's the best place for them to reach you?
Just on LinkedIn, I guess. I think I'm still down as Taylor, so I will change my. Hopefully, by the time this goes out, I'll have changed my name to Abigail Crowley on LinkedIn. I don't know if you can put a link to that in the podcast notes, but if that's easier for people. But yeah, just LinkedIn is perfect.
Brilliant. Abby, thank you again. And to everyone listening, until next time.
Thanks, Jordan.